Guys, welcome to Artists in the Spotlight. I'm here with my new friend Bonnie. But anyways, welcome to Artists in the Spotlight, episode 2, where we are doing an interview with a fabulous, wonderful, phenomenal guitarist, Mr. Nick Sterling. Welcome.
Thanks, Shane. I appreciate it.
Thank you for allowing us to come over to your home and do this interview with you.
I'm happy to do it. This is actually, her name is Bonnie Blue Bland, named after the 70s soul and blues singer Bobby Blue Bland.
Oh, cool.
When we got her, her name was already Bonnie, so I had to figure out something cool that I could have, She likes Bobby Blue Bland still.
Bobby Blue Band? I
Yeah.
like that. It's pretty cool. Let's start from the beginning. I read that you started playing guitar at the age of 7. What got you started playing guitar?
My dad played guitar from ever since I could ever remember, when I was a little tiny boy. I grew up in Lake Havasu City, where my family was, pretty much from, for me at least. They came from different areas. So my dad really kind of got me started. I got a guitar. I got a Fender Duosonic. They did a Duosonic reissue in 1996, and I got a red Duosonic short scale guitar on my 6th birthday. But I never really played it very much at all till I was about 7 or so. I think I was just too young. I needed to wait a year. But once I was about 7, I started showing a lot of interest in my dad's playing. And, he was always just a guy who was, at least as far as I know, playing with a lot of local cover bands, a little bit of original stuff, enjoying playing music while also starting a family type of thing.
Nice.
But there was always guitars around the house. So by the time I was close to 7 or so, that's when I really started learning a lot. And he taught me a lot of the basics. He taught me the pentatonic blues scale. He taught me some chords. By the time I was getting close to 8, I was starting to learn some, Little Wing was a big one that he taught me, and that was one of the first songs, Hendrix' Little Wing, that I really started to sink my teeth in on as far as getting a little more complicated than just strumming the chords or playing just the straight blues scale type of stuff. So I guess, in so many words, that's how I got started, is from my dad. And he still plays now, for his own enjoyment.
Did your dad do they still live in Lake Havasu?
No, we moved to Mesa when I was 8. So they still live in the same house that I moved into in Mesa, Brown and Stapley area, since then. So, and he still plays, but he hasn't played out in a long time. He plays for his own enjoyment.
Nice.
But he still plays well. He really does. He won't admit to it, because he's shy about it, but he's a good player.
Well, I did see an interview. It said, I think, by the time you were 9 or 10, you had already outpassed him in playing guitar.
That's what he says. I mean, I'm so lucky that my family just really liked music a lot, and my mom was already full on in it with my dad being interested in playing, that by the time that, my kid's 6 now, it's crazy to me to think about, getting a guitar at that age and starting to play with it at 7.
So at the age of 10, you released your first, was it a 5-track CD?
Yeah.
5-track CD called 10.
Mm-hmm.
How exciting that must have been. How did you feel about that release?
It was very exciting. It was 20 years ago now, if you can believe it. I'm almost 30, which is kind of hard for me. So, when you're young, you kind of just along for the ride, right, with whatever's going on. Mm-hmm. And I'd been playing well for a couple years there. I learned from my dad first, and then I started taking some lessons from this guy named Jack Wolf at Milano Music in Mesa. He got me started with playing out live, so I already had maybe 2 or 3 years of showing up and setting in with the band in the bar before it was time to actually try to do that. So I had some connections from people that were willing to try to help me on releasing that record. I recorded it I forget the reason why, but I recorded it at a place called Rax Track Studios in Chicago through a friend of mine named Paul Thomas, who's a really good photographer. He had some connections there because he lives in Indiana, not too far from there. And I flew out there with my dad, and we tracked it all in one day, which is not crazy to think about. It's a 5-song demo.
Especially if
It's a kids
yeah.
EP. It's like these. I had some nice players that were willing to play with me, and we put that out, and that was like my first thing that I ever did. I thought it's okay for what it is. What's interesting about that is like I had a couple like instrumental songs that I'd be messing around with my guitar teacher Jack that I was talking about from Milano's, and that stuff came really easy. But we needed to have like one song that maybe had some lyrics or whatever. So there's a silly blues song on there called "Walk On Through." I had some help on the lyrics with like my family members on, because I'm 10. Like, what do I have to write about? It was about just showing up to the bar and just gonna walk on through and play my blues for everybody. Because I was like pretty much into like SRV and stuff like that. That's what I could do well as a young kid. So that was the only song with lyrics on it. The rest were all instrumental stuff that I worked on my own and with some help from Jack,
Nice.
the teacher at the time.
So as I was doing my research and looking through some videos of you, I seen a video where you were in an orchestra.
Mm-hmm.
You played in an orchestra at one time. What were you playing? It was a stand-up violin, or what do they call those?
They call it upright bass.
Upright bass.
Yeah, I played the upright bass from about, I forget if it's 3rd or 4th grade, 4th grade up until I graduated high school.
Nice.
And it taught me a lot of discipline with music, as far as learning how to play in a group. If you look at a situation where, like, once I was in high school, there might be 4 upright bass players that are all trying to play together. You all have to play in the same dynamic. Everybody's going to be quiet when they need to be quiet, be loud when they need to be loud, and the intonation of the pitch of everybody's got to be as tight as it can be. But it just taught me so much about being disciplined about what it is that I'm trying to do. And I wasn't always the best at that either. I play a lot of different instruments, and I love playing the upright bass, but there's plenty of times where I wouldn't get first chair, second, or third. I was never really competitive about it either. It's just something that I like to do.
I have a question.
Yeah, what?
How many instruments do you play?
I don't have a count. I can play most of the string instruments. I can't play any horns. I tried to play the sax for a little while. My Uncle Jeff, my dad's brother, was a saxophonist when he was growing up, and I thought maybe I might be able to do that, but I didn't really get past, running up and down the scales. It's just hard for me. But as far as like the rock world goes, like I got the drums, I got the bass, I can play guitar, I can play some keys. I'm adequate in all that stuff, enough to be able to express like if I'm writing something or if I have an idea. But there's usually a better player for the job.
That leads us into the next question. In 2005, you released your second CD, Life Goes On, which is a killer record. I read that you played all the instruments yourself, plus did the vocals.
I did on that one. And that was actually recorded on a lot of the gear that I still have now, which is kind of funny to think about. Because when I was really young, I was playing out in bars all the time, and I didn't have any rent to pay or any other stuff like that. My family was supportive of me, and I don't come from a super upper class background or anything, but I was making enough money that I could get into recording and buy the gear to do it, even though I forget how old I was when I was doing that. But yeah, I had a little electronic drum kit, so I played all the drum parts, and I used samples on it to try to make them sound a little bit more legitimate, instead of fake drums. I just send the MIDI signal in, and I tracked all of that when I was pretty young. I was probably 13, 14.
I read where you said it was nice because you had control over it, but the negative part was you overdid it sometimes.
That's what I keep finding out even now that I'm almost 30 is like if I give myself too much control, I'll start messing around with stuff that doesn't need to be messed with. It needs to, I'm not strictly a rock guy or a blues guy or a jazz guy or anything like that. But at the same time, if you give yourself too much control over something, you don't have any other outside ear to kind of curb what you're trying to do, you just end up running around in circles. And I already was kind of doing that with that one. Like I was really into Queen and Boston, so every song had to have 32 vocal tracks stacked up on top of each other for the harmonies. And when your voice sounds like this already, like what's the point when you're like 14 to track 14, 14-year-old 30 times for a harmony or something like that? It just is silly.
Who were some of your influences? What made you think, okay, I want to get into rock, get into that sound that I was doing on those first two albums? Who were your influences back then?
Oh, at that time it was all about Yes, Rush, Boston, Led Zeppelin. A lot of the same stuff I like now, but I really, really liked it then. Now I'm a little bit more open to different stuff. I still listen to, like the first record that I can never remember really loving as much as I still do now. And it comes from back before I even played any instruments. With my parents living in Havasu, we'd have friends that have boats, and we go out on a boat, and my dad put on that Thin Lizzy dedication record. And I still listen to that. I listen to it this week. That still is just as powerful for me as it was when I was 5 or 6 years old, before playing anything really,
Talk about the Catch Me If You Can Breakout documentary. Do you remember much about that?
I remember some of that. See, the thing that's kind of interesting about that, and I might get some of the guys' names wrong, but there's a guy named Simon Barron. There's another guy, Paul. This is a long time ago.
Yeah.
And then there was a guy who was financially backing it too, which I never really saw very often. See, the thing is what they were trying to do is they were trying to artistically kind of express what they wanted to do by finding some sort of young artists that they could document. And this was in the mid-2000s when the idea that the music industry was not so unbelievably hard to be successful in as it is now. Where they seemed to think that they could find a kid like me and shoot a documentary, and 2 years would go by, and by the end of it, they'd have the finale for their documentary, right? When everything just works out and everything's cake and it's just like celebration day, right? And I think the reason why a lot of that never really got quite there is because it just never really happened. Like, what are they going to use as their final scene for their documentary? Oh, he released his solo record that he played most of the instruments on, and he can sell it at his shows in Phoenix. You know what I mean? But I have no qualms with those fellas or whatever. All that happened is that there wasn't an end. So they spent some time filming it, but there was not really a good established success story to, you watch these documentaries, it's like it's got to end on some sort of something. Instead of just, oh, well, he's still waking up every day. You know what I mean?
What I got from it, though, is that you were a normal kid, though. You didn't.
Yeah, I definitely was.
You didn't seem like you were this, rich and famous.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I grew up in a pretty middle-class family, although just unbelievably supportive of my music.
Yes.
My mom, my dad always had music. So we had that bond. And, my little sister, Maddie, too. We were a family unit there trying to, they were all right with going out with me and playing in the bars. And I'd sell all this merch and sell my solo records and play for 4 hours straight and have a great night 2 nights out of the week, Friday, Saturday night. And that's what we would do for a long period of time, It seems like an eternity ago, but when I think about it, it's really only 15 plus years,
In 2006, you were asked to perform at the 2006 Lake Havasu Rock Fest. You headlined with many other artists. Do you remember some of the artists that you headlined with?
I don't remember a lot about that. I remember that I played with Buck Cherry when they were really popular then. And I remember the singer was like climbing underneath the bus trying to find something, and he came out and his hair was all disheveled. And this is like the peak of like the I love the cocaine, I love it. Like you know they were just all messed up, right? So that was kind of funny. And then I remember that the Black Crowes were there. And I remember I didn't really know which one was Chris Robinson and which one was Rich Robinson, so I went up to one of them, and it wasn't the right one. It was not the right thing to say when I thought one was the other, right? Because they hate each other. So let me think. I think I might have one more I can think of. Oh, we played with Slightly Stoopid, and they got kicked off the stage because they were smoking so much weed on stage. I was 16 at the time when we were doing that. And that was just like a whole weekend Havasu festival. So they had some big names there. I think the Doobie Brothers closed it out. Yeah. Oh gosh, I remember a lot more than I thought I would. That's funny you bring it to my memory. But yeah, the Slightly Stoopid smoking weed, the Buck Cherry guy just being just out of whack, and the issue with the Chris Robinson Rich Robinson rivalry was kind of funny then, It
is funny. In 2007, you were asked to partake in the Arizona Music Project, and one of the few selected musicians to represent the state of Arizona. What can you tell us about that? That must have been an honor.
It was an honor, yes. The state hired this guy, Jason Camiolo, who I'm still kind of in touch with. I haven't talked to him in years. And he got me involved with it. And it was really cool to just have everybody within the whole state, not talking about downtown or the suburbs. There's the whole state to be involved with that stuff. I mean, all I really did was show up and play some slide guitar and some chords and some stuff like that on the recording. But it was the first time I really got to be involved with doing any studio work, like in somebody else's recording area, which is sort of interesting for me because I've always just bought the stuff I wanted to have to record with, even from when I was a preteen, and just done it on my own, at least during that period of time when I was making music, to just show up and, they'd tell me, can you go for more like a jangly Beatles type of thing? You know what I mean? I was happy to kind of fill the void of what they wanted me to do with it. And I got to go to this really schwanky party that was for it too, which is cool.
That's cool. In 2010, you released your third CD, Invisible. Another great album as well. A little different sound though on this, I thought. Talk a little bit about that album. Did you do all the instruments on that album too?
That one was it was all me on most of the production recording side of it. I played everything but drums. I did record all the drums the way that I did on the first one, but I wanted them to sound more like real drums on the second record that I did, that one that you're talking about. So there's a guy named Jamie Wolford. I don't know if he still lives in town. Last I heard, he still lived in town. He played drums on it and he mixed it, and it's a little bit less straight ahead rock than the stuff I was doing when I was 13, 14. It's kind of more into that kind of jangly guitar thing. I don't know. It's all right. Nobody really likes their records. I would never want to listen to it unless I was forced to.
Oh, I've been getting into all of it.
Not saying that I don't. Jamie did a great job on it. He made it sound great, and he played the drums. He was slamming on it for sure. But I think a lot of people don't really want to listen to stuff, especially because, for me, sometimes people ask me why I don't want to put out more solo records, and the problem for me is I don't want to write bad lyrics. I'm not a lyricist. I appreciate good lyrics. I really do. I'm not one of those people that just only listens to the music. I listen to the lyrics a lot. But I know that I'm not up to the par of writing lyrics that I need to actually be proud of a record that I put out. So that's why I don't do that anymore. I would rather be a supporting guy that can play the instruments for somebody who really has something to say than, there's so many people that think that if they can just rhyme, this line has 6 syllables and the next one can have 6, and as long as the last syllable rhymes with the one in the front, it's just like you can kind of piece together a song with You Shoe Blue type of stuff all day long.
But I think that's important to know, because a lot of people don't know what their thing is, and what you specialize in, and that's obviously guitar.
Yeah.
And
well, I'm just music side of things. I have no reason to be trying to write lyrics. I might throw in an idea here and there, but you know what I mean? But you're right. I think it's better to know your strengths and play upon those without being scared to try other things too. But if you already know that you're not all about trying to be a lyricist, like save that for the people that write in a notebook every night. The people that actually have something to say, instead of rhyming the last word of the line 1 with rhyming the last word of line 2, because that's not lyricism to me. It was late 2009, and to give some context, in the late summer, early fall-ish, I was, I guess it's been long enough now that I don't need to keep it secret like it was when it happened, but I was contacted from my friend Ron Thal, who goes by Bumblefoot, who's one of those crazy guitar players that played with Axl in Guns N' Roses up until they did the whole reunion thing. He was with them for quite a while. About, hey, you maybe want to come to the studio and play with the guys and see if you're a good fit for Guns N' Roses, which is crazy for me to think about. You know what I mean? I figured it was 18 or 19 years old, and I went and did it, and basically I tried out for Guns N' Roses at the time. But anyway, so I didn't get the job. This other guy, DJ Ashba, got the job, and he's a fine player. He fit the gig way better than I did, because I was never really an 80s guy anyway. But anyway, so this was like winter that year when I was hit up by Sebastian from his personal Facebook, because a lot of these guys, you think they have all these people working for them, but when it comes down to it, I get a message from the dude, like asking me if I want to do it. And so he hit me up, and within a month I was heading out to Finland for my first show with him when I was 19 that year. But anyway, within a few months I was doing the situation with Sebastian, because he reached out to me directly, and it came to my knowledge a few months later that it was kind of like a situation where it was almost sort of recommended in a way. I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but it seemed like that's kind of why I ended up in that situation, because they're close and they were working a lot together. I replaced this guy who went by Metal Mike Shredder. Great guitar player. He knows what he's doing. We couldn't be any more different, though. I'm not this guy who's all about like, yes, the metal, let's play the notes, and like he's this foreign guy who shreds really fast or whatever. So I filled in for him, and before you know it, like 3 years go by, and I've been doing that for a while. Yeah, I got the gig, and my first gig with him was in Finland in like November or December of 2009. So I did that for a while.
When did you cut the album?
It was Kicking and Screaming, and it came out in 2011. I think it came out in late 2011. I want to say we recorded it all through springtime. We were out there for Sebastian and I both flew out, and we stayed in like Woodland Hills area of California, like north of Hollywood, and we recorded with a guy named Bob Marlette. So when I went out there to record that with him, I'd already been in the band with him for 2 years, and he had heard some stuff off my most recent, at the time, solo record that we talked about earlier, and he really liked a lot of it. And one of the songs on there ended up actually being one of the singles from Sebastian's record, the Alive was the name of the track. He changed a couple of the lyrics around, but it was pretty much exactly how I had wrote it, melody-wise and instrumentation. But anyway, so I went out there and I did the record with him, and we were there for 2.5 months or so.
A lot of the songs were written by Mr. Nick Sterling here on the guitar.
But so I wrote that stuff with him. He wrote the lyrics. I wrote most of the music, collaborated on that stuff. We recorded it with Bob Marlette. And I learned a lot from Bob as far as how to put together a really good, strong rock record. And could never done it without working with him.
Do you want to talk about how it ended at all, or?
So I did that for a while. You know, I joined it in 2009 when I was 19. I think it went until I was 22, almost 23 or something like that. I forget exactly when it ended. But anyway, the reason why it ended was I pretty much had sole writing credits on the music for all the songs on the album except for one that was written by John Five, who plays with Marilyn Manson. You know, that guy, he's a telly shredder, really good player. So he wrote one of the songs that became one of the hits, or not the hits, but one of the singles from that record. It's called Tunnel Vision. So he wrote that one with Bob on the music side, and Sebastian wrote the lyrics or something. But anyway, I wrote pretty much the whole other, everything else on the record, and two of the songs were actually just pulled off of my solo record. He just sung them on his own. And the reason why I quit is we were in an issue where he was trying to put out a live, not necessarily a live record. There was talks about trying to actually do a full record from it, but we were supposed to do this Access TV, like a cable TV thing where we're going to play a bunch of his material. And because of the fact that I was not willing to budge on just taking, because when I would go out on tour with him, I just get a flat weekly rate. It was like I'd be like a hired guy. I get a certain amount for a week, you know, and it was less than $1,000, you know, per week, plus $35 a day for smokes and food or whatever else I need to spend my money on, right? And because of the reason that I wasn't willing to just go ahead and say, you know, c'est la vie to my songs that I wrote and all the stuff that I worked on for whatever they were going to make off of the solo live record, that's where it really came to a head. And it was stressful. It was really, really stressful. You know, I'm sitting at the point where I'm literally riding in the bus. Oh, and that's the thing that was weird about it too. I couldn't get into Canada because I had some legal trouble at the time. This was 2011, 12, something like that. I forget when it comes out. But I had a fill-in that played 2 or 3 dates for me when they went up to Canada. They were just doing like the Detroit area. They played a couple shows around there. And then we were supposed to meet up in Modesto, California or something like that. So I had like 3 days of thinking over in my head about whether or not this was the right thing for me to continue doing. And when it all came to a head, when I was supposed to literally be there playing the show, and I still haven't had any information about whether or not the stuff that I worked on was going to be compensated for me or not. You know what I mean? Because if I was more all about it, like if I was just like so down to be Sebastian's guitar player, which at the time I was, but in hindsight it's like I'm not an 80s metal guy. I'm kind of an oddball in that whole sort of scene of things. Like even when I was doing it, I'd be the type of person who'd be like, I'd be listening to like Little Feat or something when everybody's else trying to party to Van Halen or something. You know what I mean? So by the time I got there, there was nothing resolved legally, and I just chose not to play it. I hate to say it like that, but I mean, I'm not going to just keep stringing myself along doing something I don't want to do. Yeah. And then also, by the time I got to about 3 years-ish in, I was just so tired of the debauchery on tour. Because when people think about, we'd be playing in South America, and these fans, they would think that we were literally riding in on private jets. And, on our off days, we're out on yachts just popping bottles and like whatnot. Nah, it's not like that at all. I'm talking like everybody in the band stays 2 guys in a room, except for Sebastian, if that. I mean, I had plenty of times when I was traveling around with him where, we're all traveling around in a 9-person van, with the sound man, the monitor guy, the roadie, and the rest of the band, and that's it. You know what I mean? So it's just
So it's not the dream life.
the combination between it not being the dream, not being my kind of music, because I'm not an 80s guy at all. It's just it wasn't a good fit for me anymore. And when it came to a head, when it was a situation where I'm not getting compensated for the stuff that I put effort into, writing and recording all of that stuff, so if I'm not enjoying doing it, and I'm also seeing all this crazy stuff around me with like infidelity and drug use and all that other stuff. And I fell in love with Cyrena right before I quit too. I was ready to just cut ties with that stuff and just be me for a little while, Mm-hmm. So I can't talk anything bad about the guy. Obviously, I will forever be indebted to the opportunity that he gave me. We were opening up for 60,000 people. I mean, of course, it was riding on Guns N' Roses' coattails, but I still got to do that, and that'll never be replaced. We've only done stuff within the States. My original band, Wyves. We have 2 records out. We've done some stuff. We've gone all the way out to New York City. We travel all over the States. It's a lot of work. It's like what you think about, like if you saw like an indie movie about a rock band trying to make it. Yeah, it's just like that. It's like, no showering, five dudes in a van all sweaty. Oh, sorry, actually, usually it's 4 dudes and like a cool girl that wants to take pictures of us. But yeah, it's pretty much like that. It's staying in hotels. It's sleeping in the van if you don't know what's going to happen. It's showing up. Sometimes there might be 12 people. Sometimes there might be, a couple hundred. We don't know. We're just out there trying to do it. Everything's very, very different than, I suppose I wasn't there, but I feel like it's very different than the fables that I hear about how rock lore used to be. What it really comes down to is the bands that are going to be successful with what they're working on are going to. It's got to be an all-in, all-the-way thing, which we try to do. We do pretty well when we go out, but it's hard. If you think about it not being glamorous when we traveling with Sebastian, imagine how non-glamorous it is when I'm traveling with a band that has, 2 records out and not a statewide following. Trying to build that up. Of course, we can't do that this summer because everything's shut down. So that's a killer for a original band like us, because every year, you're trying to build something up. Yeah. And as soon as you're not doing that, then you end up forgotten, because it's very saturated. There's 2 different sides of the coin as far as original self-funded, self-contained bands go. It's really cool because anybody can record on their own now. So you have all these independent artists that can just put out music on their own. But also because of the fact that there's so many of them, it's very difficult to find your own spot, your own place. But I'm really proud of everything I've ever done with those guys. We got 2 records out, and we're going to be working on another one. And just have to see what happens. Just got to keep trying hard,
Who are the members of the Wyves? Is that how you say it? Do you call them the Wyves?
It's not like the Beatles or the Stones or the Hives or anything like that.
Who are the members of Wyves?
It's just Wyves. It's and we just had to pick a name, Nobody else has it. It's pretty memorable. It's me. It's the singer's name's Corey Glodden. He's been playing in the Valley since early 2000s. He's a seasoned musician, seasoned songwriter, seasoned entertainer most of all. He's on lead vocal, plays rhythm guitar. My friend Brendan McBride, actually they're all my friends. My friend Corey Gloden, my friend Brendan McBride, my friend Evan Nisley. Brendan plays the bass. Evan Nisley plays the drums. And yeah, we're a four-piece.
Well, explain the sound. It's a unique sound.
We like rock. We're not trying to be a throwback band, which is really popular right now. I don't know if you've noticed, but I mean, we all listen to everything from old stuff to new stuff. A lot of it is, a lot of it comes from Corey's, our singer's ideas, and we just build around that. At least on the last record, it was especially a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, what's your favorite song on Are You Okay?
Oh shoot, I wasn't ready for this one. Let me think about which ones are on there.
Look at this. We got the
There
album
we
right
go.
there.
I got it right here.
Oh, there it is.
Let's see if I have to pick one. I know Cyrena's favorites is Distractions. I like that one a lot too. But I usually like the fun ones. I really like Are You Okay, the title track, a lot. I like Speed of Sound a lot.
I think that's the one I was listening to. On
Speed
the
of Sound's
radio.
pretty cool. I like that because it's kind of like touching on that like Sly Stone kind of like rock funk sort of thing without being like wah wah, here we go, let's get funky type of like it's a novelty thing, right? You know.
Bluesy, like sound to it.
Yeah, I think it'd probably be Speed of Sound, My Gravity.
It's pretty much the whole album.
Well, there's only 8 on here. I like 3 of them. The rest of them I like pretty good too.
Yeah.
But it was really fun recording this album because this is the first time. I mean, it's only our second album, right? But this is the first time that we actually went into a real studio and tracked everything. The first record was all tracked either on my end or from a friend of mine named Ryan King, who's a local guy who works with everybody. Not necessarily in the studio. He's a guitar tech. He can do video stuff, audio stuff. He's a jack of all trades type of guy. But he tracked the drums and a lot of the overdubs in his parents' basement on the first record that we did. So it was cool to do that with him, for one, because it kind of comes from the mindset of what I'm used to, of like working within a house that you're comfortable with. Mm-hmm. And then when we did this one, we recorded it in Mesa at Flying Blanket with Bob Hogue, who's he's put out a lot of really great local music. He's a pro. He's great. So this is like our first real studio professional level recording. Well, I got a call from Brendan, or actually it was a Facebook Messenger message from Brendan, the bass player, who's the bass player in Wyves now. At the time, he was the bass player in Sarah Robinson and the Midnight Special, which is kind of like a local blues rock kind of band, female-fronted band. Sarah Robinson's a great singer. And he asked me if I'd replace their guitar player because they were having some issues or whatever. And this is right after my daughter was born, and I was looking to try to start playing with some people again. And I hadn't done very much besides a couple cover bands here and there just to keep my chops up so I could still play guitar without my fingers going all soft and noodly. So he hit me up, and him and the drummer, Evan Nisley, were in Sarah's band when they had me join, and I was only in the band for a couple months before that started to sort of fizzle out a little bit. And they were trying to do something that was more rock and a little bit less blues. So we started playing together for a few months, and then we started talking about trying to find a singer, and we found our singer. So before you know it, Corey's over there, and we're working on everything. And like I said, it was all pretty, at the beginning, it was all very, very do-it-yourself, which was nice because we're all getting to know each other and getting to know how we are musically. And of course, the first record sounds very, very different from the second one. The first one's a little bit misguided. There's not a real like core central idea of what the sound's supposed to be that we kind of got to on the second one. But nonetheless, that was a great process for us all to become really good friends and understand everybody's little idiosyncrasies with how they work together. You know, we got Danny Taylor Pettit, your bud, tearing it up on the lead vocal. We got Nick Marshall. He plays bass, keyboards, mandolin, MIDI foot pedal bass. He does that too. We got Filiberto Lopez on the drums, the timpani, and the gong.
Awesome.
And we just all love Led Zeppelin. We're not trying to get up there and pretend like we're Led Zeppelin. It's just an homage to it, you know? I'm not super huge on the whole tribute thing. I've dabbled in a couple other ones, like I did a Bad Company thing for a little while just because I liked the guys that were in the band. Dabbled in a couple other little tiny things for a short period of time, but if I was going to do a tribute, it's got to be to something like heavyweight, you know? It's got to be something that I really, really care a lot about. And I'll still always arm wrestle anybody who thinks they like Led Zeppelin more than I do. I usually lose, but sorry, that's a joke that I have with the old drummer that was playing in the Zeppelin band. We always used to arm wrestle each other when we get drunk. We probably still would, but yeah, I love Led Zeppelin. The fellas love Led Zeppelin. We just try to do the spirit of Zeppelin. We're not trying to recreate the record stuff, nor are we trying to play the live stuff note for note. We just try to play in the spirit of Zeppelin.
The energy between you guys, when you and Danny are doing your thing.
Well, that's why I like doing that with those guys. Because if I was in a band that was just playing like if I was stuck having to play all of note for note Phil Collins Genesis or something like that, and I knew that the set was going to be the same every night, and we got all these big, huge smash hits from both Phil and from Genesis that I know we're going to play and the people are going to love, I still wouldn't like that because it's going to be so neutered and compartmentalized to the point that everybody knows exactly what they're doing. And by the time you do it 5 times, you're sick of it, right? At least for me. If I'm going to be playing in a tribute band, I want to at least be able to express a little bit of myself through the filter of Jimmy Page than to just be up there nailing it note for note.
I love it. It's always a good time.
I like it a lot too. And I like to try to do some of the mannerisms too. I do that.
All you guys do.
I like to do some of those like little heroin shimmies, you know?
And Danny, he turns into an Englishman when he gets up on
Oh,
stage.
I don't know about all the English accent. You'll have to talk to him about that.
I'm like,
We let him get a couple. We let him get a couple in these days, but.
Do you go out and watch any of the local bands?
I would a lot more if I wasn't such a family guy at this point. Like when I'm not in coronavirus, I play in a lot of cover bands around town, just trying to make a living. Some weeks I might have 7 shows a week. Sometimes I might have 3. But when I'm working that much, going out and playing in a bar for 3 hours a night, I usually don't want to go out to a bar to watch somebody else to play. I'd rather be at home watching a movie with my girls and just doing what I want to do. It's a Zeppelin 4 with Wyves, I play with another group called Day Weather, which is like a cover band, party band. They're really good. They're fun. We're going to be getting back into it soon after the virus stuff goes away. I play with Jay Allen and the Uncommon Good. I actually play keyboards with that band. I get to bring my old, I have an old 70s Fender Rhodes that I bring out. Let's see, I play with a guy named Josh Bierman, who's a local solo acoustic songwriter guy. He plays covers as well. And then every now and then I get a call from a random guy who just needs a fill-in, and they send me the list, and I'll learn it all and show up and play the gig. Yeah, it keeps my playing up too, because if you're only ever playing when you have to, when you're playing with your original band or when you're playing with the Zeppelin band or whatever, like I feel like I'm always at like an 80% level, even if I'm just sloppy or haven't played in weeks. But when I'm playing 5 nights a week, 7 nights a week, that's when I really start getting up into that 95 percentile. That's when I start feeling good about my playing, you know. I take this seriously. It's like it's what I've done my entire life, and I want to do a good job at it. And even though a lot of it might seem trivial, if it's just showing up to make 150, 200 bucks or something to play for 3 hours, I'm playing Tom Petty and Outkast and whatever, you know, it doesn't matter. I still like to play because I want to keep that level up. I want to play well, you know, which has really been hard for me on this whole period of being quarantine, because I haven't played a live gig in, besides that live Zeppelin video shoot that we did, what was that, a month ago? Gosh, I can't even keep track.
Yeah.
It might be longer than that, I just don't know.
It was like May 3rd or 4th or something like that.
Yeah, when I'm not playing all the time, I just, I get back down to that 80% area, which is still passable. I can play in front of anybody on that level, but I like to feel good about what I'm doing. And when I'm playing all the time, then I know that I'm going to hit that level that makes me feel good and makes other people playing with me feel good and makes the audience feel good too, right?
Yeah. Do you have a mentor? Are there mentors in your life?
My dad was my first mentor. Taught me everything I needed to know. Then my second mentor was Jack Wolf, Alana Music. Taught me everything I probably didn't need to know that much. Because obviously, like that works, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. Am I missing anybody?
What about your wife? You lean on her a lot?
I really do. She supports me so much. Like I said, when I first met her, it was coming towards the end of the Sebastian touring stuff. And I was just really extremely unhappy when I met her because of all the debauchery on tour and not really liking the music and struggling with the financial side of things and being compensated for the work that I put in writing-wise or whatnot. And, you know, she gave me the strength to just kind of stand up and just not do what I don't want to do anymore. I mean, a lot of people might see me say that and think, like, what an idiot. Why would you not want to do that? Well, they don't know the whole big picture, right? But yeah, pretty much since then, we've just been inseparable and just working together, just getting through life. You know, we had our child in 2014, and since then, we've just been the team.
What do you view as success in your musical career? Have you achieved it?
I've done a whole lot that I should be really proud of, and I am. Sometimes I get really down on myself because I'm almost 30 now, and I don't have any big things to show for it. But what I do have to show for it is I have a really loving family, I have a healthy, happy kid, and I'm still able to work in music to this level, at least, that I'm at. Ideally, what I'd love to get at is to be able to get a little bit more involved in session work, studio work, other things like that. At this point, I'm not trying to go travel around the world anymore. If I can use my talents to make somebody else's projects better or to facilitate an idea that somebody else has, and that's going to give me more happiness than traveling around playing somebody else's music. I'd love to get more involved with recording other bands. You know, you look at like the role of being a record producer type of thing, and really what they do is try to facilitate figuring out exactly what the strengths are of an artist or a group and not getting in the way of that, which might be hard for me because I'm really opinionated on things, and because I know a lot about the different instruments. I might want to say, hey, don't do it like that. That sounds weird. But I need to step back and let other people be themselves. You know, it's like I look at like, talk about like AC/DC, for example, as much of like just a generic example that I'm talking about. Their biggest record to me is Highway to Hell. I mean, pre Brian Johnson period. And that was the first record that was not recorded by Angus and Malcolm's older brother. I kind of like the early ones better because they didn't have a big name producer coming in there telling them, you know, there's some songs on there that I don't like because they lack some of the essential basic AC/DC stuff. But on the same flip of the coin, that's why Highway to Hell was so unbelievably successful, because he could come in and see like the foundations of what those brothers and their bandmates were bringing in and figure out a way to make it appeal to the masses. So balancing that with letting other people kind of do what they want to do. When I think about being a producer type of thing, that's kind of what you want to try to do. So ideally, I'd love to be somebody who can figure out the difference between one or the other.
Be yourself.
What would you do without music?
I thought a little bit about this the past, actually, quite a while now. I feel like if I wasn't going to do music, I would want to try to go into some sort of psychiatric, psychology, guidance counselor, that whole sort of umbrella of things, because I like talking to people about their problems.
Yes.
I like listening. I feel like I give good advice, even though I don't follow my own good advice. I feel like that's kind of true with a lot of people that get into that field. I feel like if I was going to not do music, I'd want to be some sort of psychiatrist or something.